Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor! Vă mulțumim că sunteți alături de noi. Ascultați Radio AVFM, Vocea Europei.
Jó estét, hölgyeim és uraim! Köszönjük figyelmüket! Önök az AVFM Rádió Európa hangja műsorát hallgatják.
And, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to A Voice for Men Radio, the voice of Europe. A Voice for Men is the flagship of the men's rights movement. And this show is probably the only one at this point addressing the issues concerning men and boys at a European level. If you ever thought that there's something wrong regarding the state's approach to men and their issues, this is the best place to start. This is the place where feminism gets to be called out on its lies and propaganda, and the state is invited to get out of people's lives. Please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and see how the truth in action sounds like. We are here and we don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And now, Lucian Balsing shall bring us on today's topic.
Feminists and Manginas be warned.
While you're listening to this show, bricks of logic may fly out.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, at the Voice of Europe, we'll continue our coverage of the European election campaign with a focus on yesterday's gender debate that took place in Cluj-Napoca, Romania, and on feminist initiatives' latest developments in Sweden. Yesterday, I attended to a debate on gender equality and women's rights that took place right in my backyard in Cluj-Napoca. To my surprise, the proceedings went far better than what I had expected from an overtly feminist organization and with a majority of feminist attendance. I was only once called a troll by a self-identified sociologist and leftist activist, and the moderator cut her off, explaining to her that one simply does not interrupt someone's speech just because she disapproves, and she should just wait for her turn to speak. That's not an attitude that one often sees on such events. In the Netherlands, I was called all sorts of names for daring to question whether the EU should indeed be so huge, or whether the EU should be involved in the first place in gender issues. It's nice to see that sometimes you can actually have a civil debate with someone you strongly disagree with. Now, don't get me wrong, the actual things that were said in the debate were absolutely horrific for any sane individual. We had a female politician claiming that the state should brutally censor the media in order to counteract what she considered to be the objectification of women in the media. We had another female politician claiming that men and women are absolutely identical and that biology is irrelevant. And we had a female attorney asking whether the state shouldn't fund courses for women on how to manipulate men. Maybe I didn't say that properly. We had a female attorney demanding that the state pay for courses directed at women on how to manipulate men. So yeah, it was a civilized debate, but the points that were actually made in there were absolutely stunning. In many instances, I honestly doubted my hearing, but we'll discuss more about that with our guest tonight. In other news, the mass media is doing everything in its power to demean any candidate in these elections who even hints that he or she might not be so friendly with the EU's gender agenda. A political party in Sweden who believes that Sweden already has enough feminism and that the average 60% taxation level that exists in the country is a bit too high, has been called a fascist party by the British media, whilst the real fascists, you know, like the ones who wish to introduce a Ministry of Truth in the EU, go largely unnoticed. In Poland, the EU Observer itself came after a candidate who said that Poland would be better off if the EU would just stop messing around with the Polish society's values. The EU Observer, however, called him a misogynist by outright lying about his views and called him an individual who hates people with disabilities, even though the same individual founded and leads an organization that successfully helps people with disabilities to integrate on the labor market as a better alternative to living on government dole. And he has been doing that for 7 years. Of course, it's just an accident that the author of that article just happened to be an avowed communist. Nah, it's just an accident, nothing to see here, move along, let the media do the thinking for you. In other news, in Ireland, politicians are calling each other sexists over trivial comments, the Labour Party going through a small internal war because the senator dared to poke fun at another candidate whom he considered a populist. And in Italy, a political party suddenly changed its candidates list because it was too male. The politicians and the pro-EU media are getting desperate, and gynocentrism and frivolous accusations of sexism and misogyny seem to be pretty much the only weapon that kinda unites many political parties across the spectrum and across the cultures of Europe. Well done, EU feminists, you've managed to move the entire discussion from more or less relevant topics to petty squabbles over Twitter posts. So tonight we're going to try to cover as many of these issues as possible, but with the primary focus on yesterday's debate and on Sweden's feminist initiative. Call in and engage! I am Lucian Vulsan, and this is the Voice of Europe. And we're back. Greetings, everyone. This is Lucian Vulsan, broadcasting from Transylvania. Alongside with me is James Huff, broadcasting from the United States, and Herr Jon Gunnarsson, broadcasting from Germany. Hi there, Jon.
Guten Abend, Herr Lucian.
Guten Abend to you as well. Believe it or not, this is the 50th episode of this show. When I was making the preparings for the intro, I was looking at the folder where I saved the files, and I was thinking, oh my god, the 50th episode. I didn't even realize when time has passed. Well, since we have quite a lot of things to cover, let's go straight to the news and then move on from there. James?
You are listening to AVFM Radio, the voice of Europe. This is the news.
Okay, the first one, I think it's from you, Jon, right?
Exactly, it's from Telegraph.co.uk, and it's a piece entitled Why Does No One Ask If Moms Are Doing Their Fair Share by Glenn Poole. I took part in BBC One's The Big Questions last Sunday, where the big moral and ethical puzzle we were asked to solve was, do fathers do their fair share? The debate was sparked by an annual Save the Children report ranking the best countries in the world to be a mother. Britain slipped into joint 26th place alongside Belarus, while the mom-friendly Nordic countries bagged the top 5 places. Cue a debate about how couch potato dads in the UK are shirking their responsibilities and failing to make their partners as happy as a Swede. Men are not pulling their weight, relationship expert Dr. Pam Spur told viewers. They won't help lay the table, won't pick up after the kids, won't do the washing. This apparently is making the average British moms as miserable as Belarusians. As someone who was a stay-at-home dad and house husband in the 1990s, I find such sweeping generalizations about men not just sexist, but intellectually bankrupt. If equality for moms and dads means sharing paid and unpaid work fairly, then British dads are doing a great job. On average, we do around a third of the childcare, according to the Fatherhood Institute Family Fairness Index, and bring home around 2/3 of the bacon. Time use surveys across Europe also show that both men and women do around 8 hours of paid and unpaid work a day. When you add up all the paid work, unpaid work, and childcare, it seems that British dads are generally doing their fair share. So why does nobody ask, are moms pulling their weight? It's partly because international league tables on parenting don't consider what's fair and reasonable, they present what's equal. On this basis, countries where moms and dads do all things equally, earning, nappy changing, dusting, DIY, etc., are considered to be living the dream that every nation should aspire to. On this measure, our Nordic cousins are leading the world by giving moms and dads generous paid parental leave and promoting a culture of shared parenting from birth. This relieves some of the pressure on dads to be the primary breadwinner, and as a result, they do nearly half of all childcare, which is great news for men who want to spend more time at home. It's also good news for moms who want to nurture their career prospects, as they are more likely to keep pace with their male colleagues in terms of earnings. So what's stopping British moms and dads from working together to achieve this fair, equal family ideal? One of the biggest barriers to parental equality used to be the gender pay gap. How could moms ever hope to do an equal share of breadwinning if they didn't have the same earning potential? The last government figures reveal that the hourly gender pay gap for full-time workers aged 18 to 39 is now at 0. On earning potential alone, mothers have an equal opportunity to be the main breadwinner. So why aren't moms doing their fair share and picking up the reins at work? Is it really because dads aren't picking up the socks at home? It's partly because the last Labour government introduced one of the most gender unequal parental leave systems in the world. If you give moms 9 months of paid parental leave and dads just 2 weeks, it's fairly obvious who's more likely to end up as the primary parent. British dads will never rise to the top of the international league tables on equal parenting until we have a political party brave enough to halve mums' entitlements and give dads an equal, unequivocal right to paid parental leave. The coalition's plan to allow moms to give some of their maternity leave to dads from 2015 are an important step forward, but fall significantly short of the use it or lose it approach the use it or lose it approach to paternity pay that the Nordic states have pioneered. What the evidence shows is that where dads have equal rights, women do more earning and men do more around the home. According to Dr. Catherine Hakim's studies on European data, men in countries like Sweden and Norway now do more paid and unpaid work than women on average. Is this what British moms and dads want? Fans of Dr. Hakim's preference theory think not, pointing out that when you ask if people prefer to prioritize career, family or work-life balance, men are 4 times more likely to prefer prioritizing career. Researchers also consistently find that when it comes to choosing a mate, women still place greater importance on finding a man with ambition and earning potential. When you add all this together, the argument that the only barrier to parental equality is men's unwillingness to wash up simply doesn't stand scrutiny. As Duncan Fisher of Moms and Dads Net commented after Sunday's debate, questions like, do fathers do their fair share, start with the assumption that men have choice and power and women have none of either. This is the crux of the matter for me. When all things are finally equal, moms and dads may still choose to share the responsibilities of home life and work life fairly, but unequally. But we'll only find out when we give men the same equal rights and opportunities as parents as we've given women at work. Yeah. So I have somewhat mixed feelings about this.
You don't say.
Now, I do agree that men and women should have equal rights to parental leave, but I just think that this right should be 0. I just think it's completely mad to think that it's a good idea for the government to force all employers and all employees to have this arrangement where if you have a child, then you can just get some couple of weeks of paid vacation, and you can leave your job for a couple of years and then come back to exactly the same job. It's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. Now, I remember yesterday on the debate that we're going to cover extensively on the second part, someone brought up an aspect that, of course, the all-female panel didn't really appreciate, but that person was completely on the money. She gave an example from a hospital in Germany where the manager of the hospital tried to be as politically correct as possible and employ as many females as possible, even though it wasn't really necessary or whatnot. And after one such employing campaign, half or more than half of those females got pregnant in the next 12 months. So basically leaving the hospital understaffed. And that from that point on, the manager, a female, made the decision, from now on we'll only employ men. And of course, the all-female panel, oh, but that's misogyny. And that person who was an attorney or something like that, she said, no, that's not really misogyny. That's the direct result of feminist policies of awarding longer and longer parental leaves at the expense of everyone else, because it's not only at the expense of the employer, it's also at the expense of the customers. And when we're talking about a hospital, I guess the customers should be quite carefully considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically
thing as a free lunch. It's just someone has to pay the price for that. You can't just have this right for parental leave out of nowhere and no one has to pay for it. No. Someone has to pay for it, and that someone is the employee. And if you give women that right, then women pay for having that right by having lower wages and just being less attractive to employers.
And it's basically the same argument that we've made in the episode when we talked about feminist misogyny. It's basically the misogyny of low expectations, and it's also the fact that on the long run, it doesn't advantage anyone, but it entertains this narrative that there is such thing as rights without responsibilities. And that's a very sad state of affairs. So in this regard, I strongly disagree with Mr. Poole. I believe that the government the only thing that the government should do would be to simply reduce the amount of parental leave as much as possible, if not remove it entirely, and leave it up to the employers. Because, in here, for instance, in Romania, right after 1990, when everything collapsed, the whole state establishment collapsed, thank God, and right after that, there were quite a fair amount of private businesses that popped up from the ashes, who were having their own parental leave plans that had nothing to do with the state. They basically offered them to long-standing employees or to highly performing employees and so on and so forth.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Yeah, and there are quite a lot of companies, especially the bigger ones. Indeed, it's highly unaffordable for the smaller ones, who offer these kinds of facilities to their employees without the state forcing them.
Yeah, and I mean, if employers want to give these benefits and employees demand them, then it's perfectly fine. But just forcing everyone to have this minimum is just extremely inefficient and it's not only inefficient, but it's also immoral. It's just you unfairly punish people who don't want to have children. But in fairness to Mr. Poole, he's also proposing that that the way to make it equal is to cut in half women's maternal leave, so that basically it's sort of to meet in the middle between the two, which would be an improvement over the current situation.
Yeah, it is indeed. It would be a less worse situation than it is now. Anyway, going to the next piece of news. The local.se, Sweden's feminists will win a EU seat, a poll claims. Sweden Feminist Initiative, Feministisk Initiativ Party, earned 4.3% of public support in a poll on Monday, enough for its first ever seat in the European Parliament. Sweden's largest two parties, meanwhile, both enjoyed healthy bumps. New figures on Monday saw Sweden's two largest parties enjoying the biggest hikes on voter support ahead of this month's European elections. Compared with the EU elections in 2009, the Social Democrats jumped 6.3 percentage points to 30.7, while the moderates kept 4 4 percentage points to 22.8%, according to a survey carried out by pollsters Ipsos and commissions by Dagens Nyheter newspaper. The biggest winners, however, were the Feminist Initiative Party, which enjoyed 4.3% of public support, enough for a seat in parliament compared with their 2.2 in 2009. The Feminist Initiative, headed by former leader of the far-left party Gudrun Schyman, has rounding up support across Sweden by throwing house parties where Schyman promises to talk at any location where at least 25 people are gathered. Jimmy Åkesson and the Sweden Democrats would also get an EU seat for the first time, according to the figures. The far-right party drummed up 5.7% of support, up to 2.4 percentage points from 2009. The Pirate Party, meanwhile, which currently boasts 2 seats in the EU Parliament, saw a drop of 5.8 percentage points. Swedish Pirate MEP Christian Engström told the local last week that the party was aiming for ideally 3 seats. Elsewhere, the Liberals lost 5 percentage points to hit 8.6%. Talking to the local last week, Liberal Party politician Birgitta Olsson said that decent people had to head to the polls this time around to uphold human rights, dignity and democracy. That's exactly things that are lacking in Sweden, by the way. We see a very military aggressive Russia. We see xenophobic parties on the rise. We see the core values of the European Union threatened in some countries, she cautioned. Advanced voting for Swedes and the Europeans living in Sweden have already opened polling booths, close on May 25th. Well, I wish Birgitta Olsson would be right and to see the core values of the European Union threatened in some countries. In fact, I would like to see them threatened in all countries at once, to be honest with you. Anyway, for those wishing to read more about this latest poll, I'm going to put a link in the chat room in Swedish with more details and a full analysis of the social and political trends in Sweden. Now, what did I tell you last week? Remember last week I said that the data that we had last week were before they gathered the support of all those celebrities, all those mindless celebrities, I would add. Well, now this poll comes up and says that I was indeed correct. I'm still surprised that so many Swedes insist on contradicting me and say, no, but Feminist Initiative isn't really that popular. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is just 1 seat right now, but still, I mean, that's 1 seat too many.
Exactly. It's 1 seat too many. And remember, this is the political party wishing to institute a Ministry of Truth in the European Union and wants everything and anything to be funded by taxpayers' money without explaining us how exactly you're going to fund that. I mean, who's going to pay for it?
It's just rich people, no problem.
Yeah, right. Speaking of that, the rich people are leaving Sweden in drones for the last 4 or 5 years, just like it's happening with France and many other heavy socialist nations.
I think maybe they should just build a wall around Sweden. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's not like it has been tried before. I mean, yeah. Well, we're going to talk some more about this in the second part. Let's go to the next one. I think that's from you.
Yep, it's from the Daily Mail. It's an article called Call Female Teachers Sir, Demand Feminist Academics in Bid to End Sexist Culture in the Classroom. When introduced to pupils as Professor, she may not have expected them to appreciate her academic achievements, but she did expect them to address her accordingly. Instead, Jennifer Coates says she was demeaned by the youngsters simply calling her Miss. Professor Coates described it as a depressing example of how women are given low status and men, no matter how young or new in the job they are given high status. Now the emeritus professor of English language and linguistics at Roehampton University has called for the traditional titles Sir and Miss to be banished from schools to stop sexist views taking root among pupils. Her call was backed by several other academics, including one who said teachers should instead be called by their first names. Professor Coates told how she had been introduced to pupils at Harris Girls Academy East Dulwich, where she was volunteering as Professor Coates, but they soon reverted to calling her just Miss. The men on the staff were all in their 20s and they were all called Sir, she said. Sire is what you called the king, and Sir is a knight. There weren't women knights, but Miss is ridiculous. It doesn't match Sir at all. It's
Yes,
just
they
one
were
of the...
women knights. Anyway.
Really? It's just one of the names you can call an unmarried woman.
Well, then,
She said-
they need to start. Then they need to start calling these bitches dames.
Maybe, yeah.
If they want the equivalent of knight,
Yeah.
then call them dames.
Maybe they should do that. She said that for both men and women, using their title plus last name would be better. Professor Coates, who taught a course for undergraduates in sexist language, warned that terms such as Sir and Miss risked reinforcing the message that women are lesser beings to men. Their use dates back to the 16th century, when schoolmasters were often of a lower social status than the children they taught. They insisted on being called Sir to reinforce their authority, education historian Jacob Middleton told the Times Educational Supplement. Meanwhile, women in the late Victorian era were discouraged from working once they married, leaving schools mainly staffed by men and single women referred to as Miss. Robin Lakoff, professor of linguistics at the University of California, Berkeley, in the US, said that Sir for female teachers that Sir for male teachers always conveys respect, while Miss does not. It is very hard to create linguistic equality between people who, in many people's minds, aren't equal, she said. At school we have children who are still really only learning language. They pick up on it very readily, and then the next generation gets exposed to the prejudices of the previous generation. Professor Sarah Mills from Sheffield Hallam University urged schools to abandon titles altogether and allow pupils to use first names. But Debbie Colsett, chief executive of the Brook Learning Trust, which runs 3 schools in the southeast, said, "If I'm in a school where students don't know me and they call me Miss, I'm fine with that. They're showing respect by giving me a title rather than hey or oi you or whatever."
This is
I don't
that
even know
kind.
what to say.
It's that kind of top kick article. I mean, what the proverbial fuck? Seriously? Yeah. How about hey you? Yeah. I mean, that's linguistic equality right there.
Yeah. It's like, do they honestly expect people to call a woman Sir? I mean, seriously. It's ridiculous. Don't these people realize how ridiculous they sound?
Yeah, well, here says someone in the chat room. In Spain, almost all kindergarten teachers are female, and señorita or señor. Señor would basically be the equivalent of the gender-neutral term. Right there, English is expert in taking words from other languages. Take that. Good luck teaching 5-year-olds. Yeah, good luck teaching 5-year-olds of non-English speaking descent to pronounce "señor" correctly at all the times and ignore the reality. Yeah, good luck in that. What the hell, Britain? Anyway, going to the next piece of news. I think it's also from you.
It's also from me. It's a piece from Heise, which is called "I don't quite remember when I was raped." Well, then it's got to be true. Okay, rapes, especially when they are only reported years later, are a difficult topic, both in discussions as well as in court. Often, rapes don't correspond to the schema of someone ambushed me, raped me, and subjected me to other kinds of violence, such that I was crying and covered in blood and immediately ran to the police. Instead, there are often cases where consent was initially present or had been assumed, but where there are no witnesses and where so much time has passed that no reliable evidence can be gathered. Then it is ultimately up to the judges to decide whom to believe. To test the credibility of the people involved in these cases, courts look at the previous life of the people involved, not just in regard to criminal record, but also reputation, sexual behavior, and so on.
They test the reputation? They test the credibility? The oppression in there.
Yeah, when I read that sounded very oppressive to me.
Go ahead.
This knowledge sometimes suffices for the decision not to pursue these cases. As with all other crimes, no one is ultimately safe from getting into trouble, at least temporarily, through the false accusation of another person. Such a situation arose for Thomas E., who in July of 2002 was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months in jail. He was accused of 2 counts of rape against his ex-girlfriend, as well as of illegal restraint. This ex-girlfriend, Claudia K., went to the police in December of 2001. Thomas E., she claimed back then, had raped her in 1997 and 2001. Additionally, he had chained her to a heating pipe for 2 hours in 1997. Here we had the problem mentioned above, and that there were no witnesses at all, and that the crime occurred a long time ago. The court believed Claudia K. and sentenced Thomas E., who thereby got into the dilemma that all innocently convicted people face. Being granted privileges in jail or an early release are not possible if the convict hasn't come to terms with his crime. Essentially, this means that he would have had to make a false confession to have a chance of being released early from a jail sentence that was imposed on him for a crime he did not commit. To put it mildly, a tricky situation. Thomas E. had appealed the verdict at the Federal Court of Justice, which brought him some relief. The sentence for the charge of illegal restraint was rescinded. But the conviction for the 2 rapes remained, which resulted in those 6 years and 8 months. The reasons the court gave for believing Claudia K. are quite remarkable, especially in regard to her statements about how the crimes happened. The very fact that Claudia K. didn't quite remember when the alleged crimes in 1997 occurred was counted as a reason to assume these claims to be factual.
Wait a minute, so she made the claim now for a crime that happened 27 years ago?
No, in 2002 she claimed that she was raped in 1997.
15 years before, yeah.
2001.
Pretty much the same thing.
Okay. No, it's just like 4 years, 5 years.
2002 versus 1987, that's 15.
Oh, 1997.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Didn't quite remember when the alleged crime in 1997 occurred was counted as a reason to assume these claims to be factual. The court essentially said that with the false claims, it has to be assumed that Claudia K.'s story would contain more precise claims about the time of the crime. Quote, "The chamber doesn't regard the uncertainty about the temporal order of events as cause for concern about the accuracy of the statement. If the witness had wanted to convey an invented story, she would have committed herself to a definite temporal order. Her hesitancy and her claims that she didn't know exactly are a sign for her love of truth." Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
An expertise on reliability, which Thomas E. demanded, was denied. The chamber claimed that they were very much capable of assessing reliability on their own. But it would indeed have been useful to look more closely at the familiar circumstances, which were in retrospect assessed as disastrous. The daughter of Thomas and Claudia, who had always believed in the innocence of her father, spoke of a violent new boyfriend that her mother had, who also used drugs.
Isn't she a sweetie?
Yep. After Thomas E. had served the sentence, he could once again form a closer bond with his daughter. To her, he'd always said, "I didn't do anything." In June of 2010, Claudia Carr admitted to her daughter that she had freely invented the two supposed crimes. She had wanted to get rid of her ex-boyfriend and had decided, together with her new boyfriend, David Carr, to falsely accuse Thomas E. The background in all this was that Thomas E. didn't want to accept Claudia's ban on seeing their daughter. Thomas E., who learned of this confession, had his lawyer dig into the story, and Claudia Carr still wanted to confess. She said she knew she was guilty and she wanted to accept responsibility. Almost 4 years later, the Regional Court of Dortmund sentenced Claudia Carr to 3 years and 4 months in jail, exactly 50% of the duration that Thomas E. had been sentenced to. The involvement of David Carr couldn't be proved, so he got away without any punishment. Claudia Carr's claim to a monthly stipend of €122, which had been awarded to her in accordance with the law for victims' compensation, was revoked. If and when she will have to pay back any of the money already paid to her remains to be seen. Now the article is a bit longer, it goes into...
well, it then goes into a case that we covered extensively in the past, the Horst Arnold case.
Exactly, the Horst Arnold case. We've covered that
in the past, yeah.
And I've also written an article on it on A Voice for Men.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good step forward. I still do believe the sentence is slightly too small for the damage occurred, because let's not forget that she damaged two people. She damaged this man who served 7 years or 5 years in jail. The sentence was 7, but how much did he actually serve?
Oh, he served a complete sentence because he maintained that he was innocent. If he had falsely admitted the crime, he would have gotten out earlier. But as it is, he served, I think, 6 years and 8 months.
Okay, so almost the entire sentence. So this guy served 7 years, almost 7 years, in jail for nothing, for just an out-of-the-blue claim with no evidence whatsoever. And she also damaged their daughter. I mean, their daughter was deprived of the father's attention and their father's care for 7 years, and also risked demonizing her father's image. All for what? So she can get to live with their new boyfriend? Or what the hell? And these two people's suffering is worth more than just 3.5 years of this person's life. And I don't think she will even serve the entire sentence. I'm willing to bet she won't, because
she regrets her actions and so on, and you should probably get out after like 2/3 of the sentence or something like that.
Well, at the very least, eventually the justice was served. That still counts for something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does count for something. But of course, it's not really gonna help Thomas E. He will get probably eventually some sort of compensation, which is like I think €25 per day in jail.
That's rather an insult, in my opinion. 25 per day, really?
That's a total of like €61,000. So I mean, that's something, but it's not exactly a lot. And it's also it isn't coming from the people who actually caused him the suffering. So it's the taxpayers paying for this. But instead, it should have been this woman paying for it, and this judge who convicted this man on no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, and remember, the taxpayers are paying this compensation, and they're also paying for her housing.
So the taxpayers are getting screwed at every turn. So the taxpayers have to pay the salary of this worthless judge, or worse than worthless judge. They had to pay for imprisoning this innocent man, and now they have to pay for imprisoning this woman. when instead it should just be this woman, the judge, should be punished. But of course, this judge is never going to be punished for that. Maybe it's not exactly good for his career, but he's not going to lose his job over this, let alone any jail time or.
Yeah, I've always wondered why aren't these justices held more accountable for their decisions. Now, there are small steps in some EU countries where they're starting to make judges accountable when they make poor financial decisions and harming small companies because potato. But I think it should be taken further, and also the judges in the criminal courts should be held accountable when they imprison innocent people, especially in cases like this, when it's more than obvious that basically the judge pulled an expert opinion out of his big ass and saying, no, we're gonna believe this because kartoffel. And we're going to just move forward with this because, she doesn't remember, then she's got to be telling the truth. Really?
Yeah. I mean,
that's the very definition of a poor argument.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to make like a bad decision in a case where there is actual, evidence which looks like the accused person is guilty, and sometimes you do make a wrong decision even if you're honestly trying to do your best, and I don't think that judges should be punished for those misrulings. But if it's a case like this where there's no evidence whatsoever and this man is still getting punished, that's outrageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of unfair sentences, if you remember, a while ago I mentioned a case in Norway where a man and a woman are charged with killing an infant, almost 2 years old infant. But the only problem is that the man was not in the same country. I mean, the man was in Great Britain, and the woman with the child were in Norway. And the woman claimed that he told her to drown the child via a Skype connection. Obviously, there's no evidence that the Skype connection even took place, let alone a recording of it. But regardless. And now it has finally reached to a conclusion, this case. NRK.no, barnedrapsaken, moren og ekskjæresten dømt til 8 og 9 års fengsel. The infanticide case, mother and ex-boyfriend sentenced to 8 and 9 years in prison. A girl of 1 year and 9 months died when her mother lowered the child's head into a bucket of water. Now her mother and her former boyfriend were convicted of manslaughter. The 28-year-old mother explained that her daughter woke up at 3 o'clock and that she obeyed the mother's request to lie down again. While the mother's then British boyfriend, according to the indictment, gave instructions about what she could make over a video link on the internet from London, she kept her daughter upside down in a bucket of water. Now, the mother is sentenced to 8 years in prison for manslaughter, whilst the man is sentenced to 9 years in prison. The ex-boyfriend wants to appeal. We see that the sentence was far below that the prosecutor would have, but it's still a long prison sentence, and it will probably mean an appeal for my client, says Vibeke Hainbera, defender of the British boyfriend. Both were charged with manslaughter in the 1-year-old of the 1-year-old girl. In addition, serious abuse continued for 6 months until she died, according to the court documents. Ex-boyfriend has always claimed his innocence. He has always said that he has not had any role in the abuse of the baby, and that the image created of him is wrong, says Hainbera for NRK. On Thursday afternoon, she had not yet had time to introduce the judgment of his ex-girlfriend. I just got it and have already seen the sentencing motivation. Now I'll go through the whole thing and then take it to my client, she says. During the trial, the attorneys argued for the acquittal of the man since they thought insufficient evidence had been brought to the court for him to be sentenced. You don't say. The mother, however, is relieved. Geir Hovland, who is the mother's lawyer, has already been in contact with his client. She is content with the judgment and has no intentions to appeal against it, says Hovland for NRK. She is also pleased that the court found that the murder was committed negligently and not intentionally. We have always recognized that that the action was both serious and negligent, and my client understands today how she committed the crime. Ex-boyfriend has gotten heavier penalty than the woman, something they're happy with. We believe it is right because the mother was always aware that he was an accomplice and should take his share of responsibility, says Hofland. What the fuck? Really? Anyway, NRK interviewer asks, many would argue that 8 and 9 years in prison is a small sentence for killing an innocent baby. Would you agree? I understand, but in the same time, they're not guilty of first-degree murder, but only manslaughter. That carries a maximum penalty of 6 years in prison, so this penalty is certainly in the upper layer, says Hofland. In addition, the two words, i.e. child abused, raised the sentence to 8 and respectively 9 years in jail. There would be a big burden on my client if there would be another round in court, but in my opinion, the judgment that arrived today is deep and thorough enough, says the woman's defense attorney. The judgment is thorough indeed, and the court is largely in agreement with us, at least when it comes to what happened. But we think the two should have been convicted of first-degree murder, not just manslaughter, says Cecile Schlöse-Mies, who was the prosecutor in the case. Molia said during the trial that she believes the couple should be sentenced to 16 to 18 years in prison. It is natural that the punishment is milder when they are convicted of manslaughter. Now we have to study the judgment carefully and decide whether we will appeal or not, said the deputy prosecutor. NRK reporter asks, the mother got a confession discount and your deputy prosecutor also called for that when the proceedings reached the sentencing phase. So what's the problem? Yes, and I fully agree with that. We agree with much, but disagree that it should have been deemed manslaughter, added Schlöse Mills, the main prosecutor of the case. So let me get this straight for everyone. So we have an unfit mother and a boyfriend who live in different countries. You know, last time I checked, Great Britain and Norway were separate countries at a relevant distance between each other. You know, and then suddenly one day the mother grabs the child's feet and puts the child into a bucket of water and drowns it and killed it. And then when the police finds out about this, she says, "Well, but my boyfriend had me do it." And they said, okay, let's look for the boyfriend. Oh, but you can't look it here. Why? Because he's not in Norway. He's in Great Britain. But how he could have forced you and made you do it? I mean, he's not here. Well, it was a Skype link. He told me via Skype that I should drown my baby. And I did just that. Okay, where is the Skype conversation? Oh, there is none. I mean, I don't have a recording of it. And there is no evidence that it ever took place. But he told me because I say so. And so they asked for the extradition from Britain. The British authorities were more than gladly to send him to face trial in Norway, and now he gets to serve more time in jail than her because we don't know exactly why. I mean, she says that he told her to do that via Skype. Am I the only one seeing a problem in this whole quote-unquote judgment?
I'm really confused by this case. I mean, I get that the legal system is biased against men and so on, but seriously, what the fuck? This man is in another country. How can he possibly be as guilty as the woman who actually carried out the crime? It's it's not like he has any sort of authority to order her to drown her child or anything like that. I mean, if he's like I don't know, he's her boss and something, and he orders her to do that, then I can see why he would also be sentenced in the same or as harshly. But he's just her boyfriend. He doesn't have any authority over her. He doesn't like at most, is what he gives her is like really bad advice.
Yeah, I don't know. And to make things worse, I mean, he got a bigger sentence. I mean, that's not taking the fair share of responsibility. That's basically fucking him in the ass for a stupidity that he did not even commit. And we're still unsure that he even had any part of it. Because, again, we don't know if he indeed told her that to do that, only based on her word. There is no corroborating evidence whatsoever.
It's once again a case where a man is sent to jail just in the woman's word.
Yeah, and it's basically she made the stupidity. Let's blame the closest man possible. And what's the closest man possible? I mean, even that rationale doesn't hold water. I mean, he wasn't close at all. He was about 1,000 kilometers away. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Now again, I have no idea what is the character of this man. Maybe he's an asshole. I don't know. But from a strictly legal perspective, this is insane. And you don't have to be an attorney to realize that. You don't have to be an expert in legal matters. I mean, have we completely abolished, have the Norwegians completely abolished the presumption of innocence just because she says he said it? Well, that's not enough to hold up the legal standard of, presumption of innocence, due process, things like that, those patriarchal concepts that we have in the Western culture. Amazing.
I guess they have a more enlightened view over there in Sweden.
Definitely in Norway.
Norway. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Of course. I mean, you've seen the same thing was talked about in the BBC debate that Glenn Poole mentioned. Also, those guys there in Norway and Sweden, they know how things should be.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the model, I'll politely say no. Okay, probably the last one in this news section, lacroix.com. Le recherche doit mieux prendre en compte les différences entre les sexes. Research should better take into account the differences between the sexes. Until the 1990s, research in medicine and biology worked mainly on male animals. The results were extrapolated to the general population, creating a scientific bias. Inequalities between men and women in scientific research are not a matter of human resources. If women are underrepresented in these teams, they are also as subject or study objectives. Thus, most of the experimental research is done on male rodents. It is not that there are no studies on females, but they are rare and often confined to certain fields of studies, such as reproduction, says Anne-Marie Devreux, a sociologist and co-scientific at the co-scientific challenge. I don't know what that is. Anyway, the females are considered as special cases from the general case, which is the male case. Similar trends are found in clinical trials. The men formed the men used to form, and they still form, the bulk of the study cohorts. Thus, according to a survey published in the journal Nature in 2010, nearly 2,000 animal studies published in 2009, in fewer than 1 in 5 of them, there were females in a decent proportion, and only in sciences such as neuroscience and pharmacology. Even in disorder studies, such as the studies conducted on anxiety and depression, which affects twice as many women, less than 45% of animal studies included females. Another example, with certain thyroid diseases, 7 to 10 more times more common in women, only 52% of the animal studies were females. Okay, I got the first part, but this one, I mean, aren't females 52% of the world population? I mean, what's the problem with this one? Anyway, however, this original bias has a significant impact on the results. Indeed, men and women do not have the same level of hormones or the same receptors or the same chronobiological rhythms. But it was long denied this reality, and that can indeed have its source in the operation of the society by extrapolating the results obtained on the whole male population, says Anne-Marie Devreux. In addition to not being always fair, scientifically, this extrapolation could even become dangerous, especially for biomedical research. In pharmacology, for example, test molecules The molecules are being tested only on males and do not assess any specific side effects on women, adds Devreux. In 2008, an American researcher in neurobiology has shown that 10 drugs were withdrawn from the market because of their side effects between 1997 and 2000. Eight of them had higher risks for women, and 4 for physiological reasons. Okay, misspelling in French. Good luck translating that in instant. Anyway, the gender bias could also explain why women are 1.5 times more likely to suffer side effects than men. I want to see evidence for that. Anyway, conversely, research has long missed out on some remedies for women. This is an example, now well known, aspirin, which later identified as permitting low dose to prevent cardiovascular risk. Overall, this risk has also long been little studied in women, while they are much more exposed than it was usually assumed, as lamented on the article published in Nature. Research still does not reflect the actual distribution of risk between men and women, and they often remain absent on any minority cases in cohorts. In addition, when they are represented, the published studies are only rarely making the results divided by sex in public. Now, the fact that they often remain absent, they often remain silent on minority cases in the study cohorts, that's not a consequence of misogyny or of bias. Or actually, it is a consequence of bias, but not a bias that is gendered. It's a consequence of something that in the scientific community is called the drawer effect. That is the scientists' propensity towards not publishing studies that contradict the majority of the studies that they have conducted so far up to that point. So yeah, that's nothing to do with with sexist bias. However, I want to tell a little story. When I used to work for a telecommunication company here, I had a colleague who was a voluntary. Basically, he was a voluntary lab rat for a pharmaceutical company that activates here in Cluj-Napoca. And he was very happy with the payment that they were offering to those who were willing to use their bodies as experimentation on new medicine and things of that nature. And he was always telling me that the company who was paying him and injecting him with all the kind of new stuff, he always told me that he has a problem finding people willing to go, especially finding females. I mean, that company went to the length of offering him and all the other that were usually going to those studies and telling him, look, we're going to pay you more money if you actually bring 1 or 2 women into this study. If you can convince a few more women to come to be tested in here. So I guess the problem isn't necessarily with misogynistic bias of the companies, at least not today, but rather an unwillingness of women to be subjected to these kinds of tests. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is at least part of it, but I'm actually a bit confused about this article, because what I remember from the feminists telling me is that there aren't really any differences between the sexes. That gender is just a social construct, so if it's just a social construct, shouldn't it? Does it matter?
Yeah. Well.
No, but seriously, I mean, the sort of women's greater reluctance to become test subjects can explain why there's fewer women in human trials, but for animal trials, I'm not actually quite sure why they use fewer female animals. I've heard that it's something about that, women, sort of females' reproductive system is more complicated and could lead to some sort of complications, but I'm not sure if that really is a comprehensive explanation of that.
Well, at least for some rodents that I know from a guy who works in a lab, he told me that at least for some of the rodents, the decision to pick mostly or almost entirely male rodents is the fact that the female body of those specific rodents simply doesn't resist even to very mild improvements of a previously known medication. They simply tend to die because they die, and you don't get to assess any kind of results whatsoever. I mean, think about it. Even the biggest misogynist of all times that happens to work in a lab, do you think that individual really cares to check for every single rodent to be all of them male? Because, I mean, really? Who thinks like that? Who thinks like that? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's usually a reason along these lines. I mean, if we're using female rodents, they're gonna all die, and we will have no idea whether this medication actually works or not. So we're just gonna use, the rodents on which we can actually test it. Again, it's the fucking biology. What's so hard to understand? But again, in human trials, it's usually the reluctance of women to be subjected to these kinds of trials. Because, let's face it, I mean, I wouldn't go to be subjected to these kinds of trials. I'll be honest here. I would just never go. But usually it's men who respond to these kinds of announcements. We're recruiting people to be our little guinea pigs in the lab. Who wants to come? And it's usually men. Because, men tend to take more risks and things of that nature. Okay, then with that being said, let's slowly move to a music break, and then we'll bring our guest and start kicking the ball about the European campaign. For the music break, we're gonna listen to a black metal band from France named Gorod. Gorod meaning city in Russian. Interesting, a French band with a Russian name. And we'll be listening this song taken from a live performance at WFMU, which is a listener-supported independent community radio station headquartered in Jersey City, United States. I took the file from there because it's the only way I can get this song under Creative Commons licenses. So let's listen. Gorod, A Common Hope.
Yeah.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're back. We have listened to Garod, a Common Hope, a great black metal band from France. I hope we can hear more from them. We're into the second part of the show. Our topic, as just it was last week, is the European elections, and tonight we're gonna focus more. We're gonna focus more on the gender debate, the gender equality and women's rights debate that took place yesterday in my backyard here in Cluj-Napoca, with two candidates for the European Parliament, and we'll also focus on the Feminist Initiative political party in Sweden later on in the show, if we get enough time. If not, we're gonna just postpone it till next week. Okay, so and for this purpose, I have invited Alexandru Taflan, a student from Cluj-Napoca who attended to the debate in on the Bayfin Hotel yesterday in Cluj-Napoca. Hi there, Alexandru. What's up?
Hello.
How are you going?
Well, I'm listening to you guys.
Okay. Well, let's just delve straight into the topic. Please tell me, how did you perceive, I mean, you weren't there as part of my little team that we went there to conduct recordings and to take notes. You just came there out of the blue. You just heard about the event and just came. How did you perceive the event? How did it occur to you? How did it look from your perspective?
Well, I was expecting that it's going to be a lot of feminists there, but the interesting part were the two women candidates. And it was very interesting because one of them was from a so-called conservative party, and the other was from a center-right party. Now, what I've seen, they were just both stupid. And why I'm saying this is that because they had no idea about what feminism is. They believe in that stereotype view about feminism. That's something good, something which is helping women to be equal. They are not equal yet. So, in general, they have no idea what feminism is. But what really stunned me was the candidate from the Conservative Party, which was speaking about women's rights. She was a socialist. She said that the women, not just that they should be paid equal like men, but they should be paid more. Because she said they had more job to do also when they come home, which sounds like a socialist Marxist bullshit. That's what I understand, actually.
Yeah, what he's talking about the candidate from a political party called Noua Republică, the New Republic. Now, I should mention this for the U.S. listeners. In here, the New Republic movement and political party is a libertarian conservative, at least in theory, political party, whilst in the U.S. the New Republic movement is a far left movement. So yeah. That's one problem. The second problem is that probably we shouldn't be calling them conservative, but rather right-leaning libertarians, because the word conservative tends to mean different things to different people. For instance, in Norway, the Progress Party is a right-of-center political party. So yeah, but other than that. That part where she said we actually had a candidate who said that she wishes to have a law, or at the very least a societal structure where women are paid more than men just because they're women. And
I'm actually curious about that. How does she imagine this could be enforced? How do you determine that women earn more? Like, what's the standard here?
No, she basically said that the employers should just be forced to do that. Because they're women. I mean, you don't determine that, you just pay them better. Now, I agree with you that given the jobs aren't equal, how do you exactly determine that? Well, that's an answer. That's a good question. I don't think she can answer to that. But yeah, other than that, what do you think about her proposal? I think it was also the same person from New Republic who said that she wants to censor the media to counteract what she perceived to be the objectification of women in the media. I mean, haven't we got enough censorship in the media until 1989? Do we really need more and just pick up from where we left it in 1989?
Yeah, you're right. It was the same person. Well, she went really full, really full progresses there. I mean, she said because you also asked her, should we use the state to do this, the government to censorship the media? And she said, well, yes, because we don't have another choice. I mean, I was shocked when I heard her. I mean, I wouldn't expect her to say that. Yeah, and actually, if what I understand, all along the debate, she was saying that we should use government for almost all the issues we have regarding the women's right, the gender equality. I don't know if you have the same conclusion as I, but this is why I perceive that we should use government for every issue we had. At least this was she said. The other candidate from the center-right party was a little bit moderate than her. She was quite radical a bit.
Yeah, it's that moment when the civic force, which is definitely not a political party that I sympathize with, actually sounded more reasonable. I mean, the moment when she said that, the other candidate said, now wait a minute, we're talking about private companies here. You're not going to force them. You can't force them, and you shouldn't be able to force them. And even the individual from the organizers, I don't know, I can't remember her name, not the moderator, not Elena, but the individual from the organizers. I can't remember her name now. Even that one said, but wait a minute, wouldn't that be discriminatory to men? And but how about the private companies? I mean, yeah, you could do that. You could conceivably do that in governmental institutions, but how do you enforce that in the private companies? And she just said, I don't know, we should just do it. And really? As for the part with the censorship of the media, well, when I brought up the point to her, but shouldn't we be just leaving the free market of ideas decide what's acceptable or not? And she said, oh, but give me a break with that free market of ideas. Now, wait a minute. And then just, 10 minutes after, she claimed that she's a libertarian with a moral anchor. How are you a libertarian when you're telling me that give me a break with that free market? How do these things compute in these people's minds?
So she basically wants people to be free to do whatever she wants them to do. Yeah, so she could basically like the liberals in America, or the many of these sort of liberal parties that in Europe. People should be free, but just do the good things.
Yeah, basically, people should be free as long as they obey the directives. If you remember, we had a European parliamentarian from Denmark, I think, who said that when they adopted that report of forcing companies to have a certain percentage of women on boards. Mm-hmm. She basically said exactly like that. Companies should be free to do whatever they want as long as they abide by this directive. How's that working out? And yes, and also I remember in that debate it was quite funny. Then it was that woman, I don't remember her name because she didn't say it. Or she said it only once, but in a very, very slow and soft voice. I think nobody can remember her name, but we can all remember what political party was she part of, because her entire speech was basically aimed at attacking everyone else. And anyway, she said that to her, men and women are absolutely identical and biology is irrelevant. How do you work out with this with such a platform?
And if that is the case, how can you tell that she's a woman if men and women are identical?
That's a good question. Alex?
Yeah, well, if I think you mean the communist girl, right? She said she's a leftist from
no,
the
not that one. The one from the Democrat liberals, from the Liberal Democrats. We'll get to the leftist sociologist, but
yeah, I wasn't so I didn't pay so much attention to her because she was quite boring. She was reading from a paper and she was making kind of electoral campaign. Actually, they all made this, which also pissed me off. But I repeat it. They didn't have a clue about really they were talking about. It was like they were reading. They were saying the same words you can read on a site of the government regarding the women issues. They really don't have any original ideas. I don't know. They didn't speak personally. They were repeating someone else's ideas, and it was the same thing with the girl, the leftist one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the one that called me a troll. By the way, I have to admit that I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of civility that was in this debate. I mean, I received no booing. I was just called once a troll, and the moderator told her to shut the fuck up, basically, by an individual who self-identified as a sociologist and leftist activist. Now, kudos to her for her honesty. Yeah, that one was particularly funny because she says she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. She wants to hear someone with a progressive opinion. Well, then just go to the Social Democratic Convention and good luck. And you're gonna hear a lot of progressives in there. You know, debate. You don't get to hear just your own side. Yeah. What else? Oh yeah. By the way, how did you perceive the moderator, Alexander?
Well, she should have been neutral. She was till a point, but I was actually before I came to the conference. I watched her Facebook page, and from what I could see was that she was sympathizing a little bit with the feminist movement, and that explains me why she was not neutral till the end of the conference. So yeah, there were moments where she was sympathizing with the feminist opinions.
I see. Well, I perceived her as far better than most of the moderates of gender issues debates that I have ever encountered. I mean, at the end of the day, the only moment where she vehemently disagreed with me was when I challenged their numbers, and I can understand why. I mean, the European Parliament paid her to be a moderator in there, and challenging that with all the cameras rolling in there, that's not really kosher for her paycheck. So I can understand why she refused to agree, even when proven beyond all reasonable doubt. For those who haven't been there, and I still didn't have enough time to write all the things on the front page. We're gonna publish, including the videos from there, but just give us time to process them. There are quite a lot of clips. Basically, in their intro of the event, they said that there are over 11,000 cases of domestic violence per year in this country, in Romania. And I told her, now wait a minute, that's basically a lie. There are no 11,000 cases of domestic violence against women in Romania. There are 11,000 cases of family violence per year. Now, family violence means everything from mom beating the crap out of the children, dad beating the crap out of grandma, and all things in between. And they basically converted the entire array of cases and made them all to be domestic violence against women cases. And that's absolutely stunning. I mean, that's a bold-faced lie.
I mean, it is domestic violence, but not just domestic violence against women.
Precisely. That's why there is the legal term in here is family violence, and it's a good term. I mean, yeah, it is family violence, but they basically converted the entire array of cases. I mean, all the possibilities were just lumped together and branded all domestic violence against women. How's that working out? I mean, why are these people keep on lying, even in front of the most obvious truth? I mean, as much as I dislike the government of my country, at least the government of my country was honest and said, look, these are this is the total number, and here is divided by legal terms. We don't have a legal term, thankfully, for separate term for domestic violence against women. We have, violence between the parents and violence towards the children and things of that nature. So the government was pretty honest when they provided the numbers. But the charities, the NGOs, such as the European Alternatives, the organizers, and such as the European Parliament, who funded the event, they were not only less than honest, they were basically lying to everyone.
Do you know how these numbers break down by gender?
No, there is no data on that.
Okay.
There is no data on that. I would assume that most of them are mutual because, there is something that finally after the debate, when I don't know if you left right after the event, Alexandru. I stayed along for almost 1 hour after and talked to both of the candidates and to the other participants in there. I finally managed to explain to them, and surprisingly, the one from the New Republic eventually agreed with me. But after I cited an entire dossier of evidence on that, I said, "Look, if you're looking to the media cases that get reported in the media, and most of them do get reported in the media, you'll basically see some rural families beating the crap out of each other, men and women alike." And that's pretty much how most of domestic violence looks like, between the adults at least. This concept that most of domestic violence is mutual seems to be completely alien to some of these ideologues. Any ideas why?
Lucian?
Go ahead.
Yeah, because you mentioned the one from the conservative. If you remind you, when you talk about the domestic violence, she said, yeah, you also mentioned about that study from the Columbia University, and then she said, well, it might be in the world that domestic violence isn't just about violence against women, but in Romania, it's just about that. This was very, I don't know. I think it was very precautious to say. I mean, what data we have about this? I mean,
yeah, well, actually, we do have amongst that huge array of studies that I've cited, over 250 studies. There are at least 10 of them that have included Romania in their groups. So the data is in, actually, including this country, and I really don't like this kind of argument. Oh, but it might be there, but it's not here. Come on, people are people, and they tend to behave in very similar manners, no matter where they go. Now, I know that this is this progressive myth that everything boils down to education, and that everything is nurture. Well, not really. Some of the things just don't change, especially the fact that domestic violence is a generational issue. Children see parents beating the crap out of each other, and they carry that violence with them into their adult relationships. That's how things work. And they work like that whether you're in India, whether you're in Romania, in Australia, in Norway, whatever. They work in the similar manner. But it's this entire denial of things that pretty much bothers me. But to be fair, however, with the organizers in particular, on the other hand, they were willing to admit at the end of the day that at the very least, male victims of domestic violence exist. Now, remember, in many cases, that's politically incorrect nowadays.
Yeah, I know. I remember another thing from the conservative candidate when she spoke about the sexist speech in Romanian politics. And she said that this is happening daily, which is wrong. I mean, it's not true. You had such a sexist speech, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago from our president, and I don't know, recently from our prime minister. But they're not daily. I mean, come on, this is a lie. Actually, this is a lie. But I understand why she said that, because it's a stereotype. You heard the television, someone said that, and you believe it's true. And this is what she did there. I mean, come on, what daily hate speech, sexist speech in your Romanian politics? There is no such thing. I mean, that was a total lie.
Yeah, it was, and she took offense when I asked her, you didn't watch TV lately, haven't you? And she refused to answer, and then she told me after the debate, yeah, I didn't watch TV lately. Then how the fuck can you assess that there is daily hate speech and misogynistic speech on the television and in the Romanian politics when you don't even watch TV? It's like I would present an opinion about how horrible things have got to in the World of Warcraft community when I have never played World of Warcraft. I don't even know how to install it. I mean, it's entirely stupid. It is.
Yeah, so these people basically just assume that it's really bad. There's lots of sexism and so on, and therefore it's just correct. It doesn't have to be tested or anything.
Yeah, because evidence is oppressive.
It's basically proof by assumption.
I like that term, proof by assumption. Yeah, it is. It is, and I don't think some of them were prepared to have someone starting questioning them. I mean, the other guy in my little team that has been with me and took notes for me and for this for the upcoming reports that will be on the main page of AVFM. He said that when he looked at my little dossier, I came with a dossier with me with all the studies and all the facts with me, and expecting. I expected a lot of BS to be thrown around in there, and I came with a little dossier, and he said to me, "Well, I think you're more prepared than these guys to actually have a debate," and it turned out to be true. If you remember, the other candidate from the Civic Force said that she hopes that Romania adopts the Istanbul Convention by the end of 2015. But on the other hand, she also admitted that she never read the Istanbul Convention.
Typically.
That's such a standard thing. And, I'm thinking, why are these people, they insist to have more female politicians, regardless of the fact that most females are simply not interested in politics. But on the other hand, they're the living proof of incompetent female politicians. I mean, how can you be a politician? That's the feeling that I got, that none of them were actually prepared to be politicians and to run in these elections, or in any elections for that matter. They were asked about specific things that happened in the European Union or that happened in this country that could be addressed at the EU level. And they said, "Oh, but I don't know, I haven't read that piece of news." But I think, you don't think. On the other hand, when the moderator asked me to give to comment an example on Austria, I said, "I don't know anything about Austria, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I'm going to comment on Spain because you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. Why can't these politicians do the same thing?"
Oh, yeah, and another thing which was really funny for me was that they mentioned Thatcher as an example of female, as a model for the females. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah, speaking of Thatcher, who considered feminism to be poison, that's indeed a very good success in there. By the way, most of the feminists disagree that Thatcher is an example of female empowerment, which pretty much speaks volumes both of their political leanings and about their hypocrisy. I mean, you have the only female British Prime Minister, and you don't consider that a good example. And whilst in the same time you preach female empowerment. How do these things work together? I mean, I've always wondered what happens in the mind of these true believers who can basically hold completely contradictory points of view, and when you question them, they just I just think it's true and I feel good about myself. How's that working out? I know Jon's response, rational irrationality, but I want to hear your response, Alex.
I think it's ideological. Think about that leftist girl when she mentioned about after she started attacking the neoliberalism. She said, "Well, neoliberalism is the cause of the women that don't have rights and so on." It's ideological. Feminists, communists, socialism, all are linked and makes sense. Has logic. You mean? Yeah. And also, I know what being conservative, I mean, the conservative values, and the conservative candidate should have been react to what that girl said about neoliberalism. To say, hey girl, wait a minute, it's wrong what you say. She didn't say that. She was like, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah. Hearing what you said now, I was thinking exactly at the Margaret Thatcher speech. For the sake of agreeing. For the sake of be nice and get along. For the sake of agreeing. Most of the points that were made in there, including the ridiculous topic that I need to mention this publicly before I write the articles. Remember that attorney, that blonde attorney, who said that the state should pay for courses directed specifically at women on how to manipulate men. You remember that one?
Yeah, I remember.
What do you think about that, Ian? Should the state pay for that? I mean, women need courses on how to manipulate men.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would gladly pay taxes for that.
Absolutely amazing. So yeah, with all the... Go ahead, Alex.
And they didn't stop there. They also said, I don't know who exactly, that also men should have a special, some kind of special treatments in order to understand the difficult periods of the women's hours passing in those times. It's just, the bullshit is complete, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, at some moments, and I have to admit that, at some moments during the conference, I was doubting my own hearing. And I was thinking maybe I misheard that. No, they couldn't have gone that full retard. No, they didn't say that. No, maybe I misheard. Maybe there's some problem with my hearing senses. And then I started listening to the recordings. By the way, the recordings are crap in terms of audio because they spoke so slow and none of them had a microphone. So I'm gonna have to work quite a lot to make that sound hearable from the videos. That's why it's gonna take a little bit longer to process, but I will do it. But then I started listening to the recordings, and I was thinking, no, I didn't misheard that. They actually said it. And yeah, absolutely amazing. Jon, throw in something here.
I don't
Think about
know what to say.
This project will happen in the following days in Germany as well. It's a trans-European project. I mean, it happened here. Tomorrow, I think it will be not tomorrow. On Monday, it will be probably in Bucharest, and on Tuesday, it will probably either be in Austria or Germany. And yeah, until May 25th, we'll hit quite a lot of cities in Europe, including 2 or 3 in Germany.
I mean, if these are supposed to be from a libertarian party, I mean, how bad are the other parties going to be?
That's a good question.
Worse.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. I mean, this individual from the New Republic was not on a eligible spot. I mean, there is 100% certainty that she will not be an MEP in the next legislature. But on the other hand, at least one MEP from them, maybe 2, will be. And also we have to remember, this individual was the vice president of the New Republic political party. I don't know. I mean, maybe someone should note. I know for a fact that the president of that party doesn't believe in these kind of bullshit. Maybe someone should notice him. Now, dude, pick your vice president slightly better, I'm thinking. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
I guess maybe they're trying to appeal to the left or something, or I don't even know.
Yeah, probably that might be the case indeed. But still... I mean, when you go into that kind of drivel, you're gonna basically alienate your core pool of voters. Because I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't vote for such a political party who'll who's willing to have as a vice president someone who believes that I should be paid less because I have a penis. No, get the fuck out of here. And more importantly, use the state to do that. Really? Why? Why should I vote for such a political party? Absolutely amazing. Yeah, what else was I just remembered something and I completely forgot. Oh yeah, the NGO that organized it. Let's talk about a bit about them. You've read that manifesto that they sent, that they've released into the whole, Alex?
Yeah. Only half because it was enough for me. I couldn't go to the end. It sounds quite social. I mean, it was socialist manifesto. It was not really communist. It was socialist. I mean, they used the specific items, the specific issues. They also named that someone is guilty, so they had the enemy in that manifesto, but they didn't say who is it. So it was typical for a leftist organization. I don't know many things about this NGO actually. I realized they're leftist because I saw their motto with equality, solidarity. I'll say, okay, I know that now, but I don't know many about them. Do you?
Yeah, I did. I actually made a little bit of research about them last night. Now, first of all, regarding their manifesto, it sounded to me like reading Das Kapital in Romanian in accessible terms. That pretty much sounded to me. So I think you're actually optimistic when you describe them as slightly socialist or not really full communist. And I did a little bit of research on them, and this NGO describes itself as a non-partisan, apolitical, non-profit organization. Now, with regards to non-partisan, I guess they're correct in the sense that they don't support a specific political party. But with regards to apolitical, no. Really, no. I mean, no. They're just not. I mean, if they had been a truly apolitical organization, they would at the very least refrain themselves from using numbers that are entirely taken from sources that can only be found in overtly partisan publications.
So, what are some of the concrete examples of what they want in that manifesto?
Yeah, I want to go. I'm trying to read now from their website if it will work. Okay, here it is. Their manifesto is something like that. Their core values is democracy, equality, culture, and beyond the nation. Reading from their website, we empower individuals, civil society, and social movements to act in a coordinated way throughout and beyond Europe to imagine, demand, and enact alternatives and influence decision makings. Equality. We stand for the principle of solidarity. We promote that the most advanced social legislations are extended to all European countries. We fight xenophobia, homophobia, and stereotypes. We believe that social and political change requires artistic and cultural engagement as much as other forms of engagement, fostering a renewal of society not limited to any one domain or sector. The most urgent political, cultural, and social questions can no longer be dealt at the national level. We foster transnational citizenship to restore to citizens democratic control over our future. Lenin believed in beyond the nation.
Euro-communist. Yeah, it's Euro-communist or international communist, yeah. Same idea.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. I mean, the only difference, we have to remember, the only difference between National Socialism and the USSR was that the USSR was international socialist. Here, European Alternatives is a transnational civil society organization and citizens movement promoting democracy, equality, and culture beyond the nation state. Yeah, good luck making the Albanians and the Finns get along with each other, or the Serbs and the Italians. Yeah, right. It's definitely going to work through this crap. The nation state is no longer appropriate political form in which to define democratic decision making and active citizenship. Equality equality between people, the respect and extension of rights. Now, here's the first hint, the extension of rights. I don't know if you've listened to the first part, Alexander, but me and Leon chatted about it. I mean, how's that extension of rights in the sense of what? Providing more positive rights, i.e. taking from someone and giving to someone else and call that a civil right?
Well, it's an usual phrase for a communist or socialist. They want more rights. They just want more. We want to have the right of having free Wi-Fi, free food, free water, and so on. They just want more rights. They don't want something limited. They don't believe that something should be limit some rights, natural rights, not just want more rights, and usually social rights, because this is what they talk about. More rights. We don't have rights. Our rights do not exist. They have to exist, but on what means, what causes? They don't say. They don't speak about this. Yeah, it's socialist, communism.
Here's a more appropriate example. Quote from their website, euroalter.com/whoweare. The nation state is not the appropriate political form to promote a responsible politics for the environment, ensure political control over the economy, and an equitable distribution of wealth, or promote peace between the people. Can it be more obvious than that, Jon?
So basically, they are against the nation state, but they want basically a European nation state. So I guess they just want
they want a bigger state. Sorry.
Yeah, basically they want like a European nation. Yeah. And I agree with them. I'm also against nation states, but replacing these small nation states with an even bigger nation state is hardly a solution to that.
Yeah, and it's also, here's the watermelon thing. Responsible politics for the environment, so it's green on the surface, and ensure political control over the economy, and then there's red inside. There's this constant watermelon politics, There come the Greens, the ecologists, the eco-fascists. Oh, but we want everything to be green, and we're going to take care of the environment by taxing the crap out of you all, and give more money to the state for potato. Makes perfect sense.
If you look at actual socialist governments, they were the worst sort of polluters, and
they still are.
They were much, much, much worse about the environment than any capitalist countries.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at a highly producing country that is not led by a communist or socialist government, I don't know, like for instance Germany, and compare it with let's say China, I don't know. I would err on the side of Germany in terms of environmental responsibility than on the side of China. Now, admittedly, Germany also has its exaggerations, such as closing the nuclear plants and then buying the electrical power from the French, who do it with nuclear plants. So,
already looking forward to that. Yay!
Yeah, not really such a huge business. Anyway, let's take a short music break, and then we'll be back with some closing thoughts. For the music break, let's listen from a hard rock band from Trenčín, Slovakia, from their album Wrong or Right, released in 2003. The name of the band, Insane Ride. So, Insane Ride, Wrong or Right?
We'll be right back.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, welcome back.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, we've listened to a very funny Slovakian band. The girl who's doing the voices is no longer active in the band. They got a new individual doing the voices for them. I'm looking forward to hear from them because I expect the new guy, the new person. I don't know if it's a guy. The new person who's doing the voice, hopefully, is more talented because their instruments are sounding absolutely great. So we're in the closing thoughts portion of the show. We didn't got enough time to talk about the feminist initiative in Sweden, and that is truly unfortunate. We focused solely on the debate that happened in Cluj-Napoca. And with that, I'm gonna ask Alexandru to provide some closing thoughts about the issue, and then we're gonna slowly move towards the end of the show. Alexandru, have the mic.
You mean about the conference?
Yep.
My conclusion is that, with regard to candidates, they as I said at the beginning, they have no idea about feminism really is. So, especially if you're a conservative, you should inform, and you also should have attitude. And about the public and the organizers, well, I don't know if NGOs like European Alternatives are organizing such things. There are going to be a lot of feminists there, which are all are going to be at the end applauding everything. Oh, what's nice, we all agree. But when someone like you came there and started arguing with them to bring them arguments, they're just angry at you. They just say, "Oh, how could you say that's not true? You're a fascist. You're a neoliberal. You want to go back to the medieval age," and so on. So I don't think you have a civilized dialogue with this kind of persons, with the feminists. I'm starting just now to study the feminist movement. I don't know as much as you guys, but what I can see, it's very hard to have a dialogue with such persons. And also there are a lot of women, and not just women, but also men, who don't know more about feminism and think, oh, it's something cool. I mean, it's okay. I had the experience on Facebook. One of my ex-colleagues from high school, I argued with her about feminism. I said to her, "You have no idea what feminism is about." She said, "No, you're wrong." I mean, I think you know her. Her boyfriend told you about Simone de Beauvoir, how great she was. Yeah, but she was a leftist. I mean, okay, so what?
My main problem with Simone de Beauvoir wasn't that she was a leftist. My main problem with her was that she was a hypocrite. I mean, if you remember, Simone de Beauvoir was the one who said that women should not have the choice to stay at home and care for their children. That's it. I'm supposed to believe that Simone de Beauvoir was an individual who was aiming to get choices for women? No, absolutely not. She was as anti-choice as they come. That was the main.
They wanted them to make the right choices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Alexander. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. So I know it's hard to have a dialogue and to change arguments with them, because some of them are just, they don't want to speak with you, because I think some of them know that on some issues you might be true, but feminism is becoming a religion. Actually, it's becoming a religion.
Isn't it already?
I don't know. They're fanatic, and they're fanatic. Just that. In Romania, I don't know if they're yet, but in other countries, what I saw on the internet, they are.
Oh, of course they are. You should just ask the guy with which I came to the conference. I mean, he's been studying anthropology for quite some time now, and I'm not going to name him publicly because I don't have his sentence for that. But anyway, he's been studying anthropology for quite some time, and he tells me that virtually all the teachers that he ever had are progressive feminists. I mean, that's just the truth. Also, in here, most of the humanities are in some way or another connected to an individual that we know as Eniko Vince, Enrico Vince being an individual who was for a while the editor-in-chief of a magazine that we call Critic Attack, which is basically the de facto communist publication that exists in this country. Moving along across the mountains in Bucharest, there is that individual author named Mihaela Miroiu, who even has her own master's program in feminist studies, and her husband is doing the entire white knighting for her and basically purging all doctorate studies students who dare to disagree with the feminist perspective. There's been a scandal recently about that. I'm gonna inform you some other time. So yeah, I mean, the academic is as infested as it is anywhere else in Europe. In here, I mean, remember just recently, a non-feminist organization was banned from the University of Bucharest following pressure from all the feminist academics. So no, this disease is as big as it in here as it is in Hungary or Croatia or whatever. I mean, our closest neighbors who also are experiencing huge problems with the feminist infiltration of everything. I mean, I'm with the Thunderfoot on this. Feminism poisons everything. Okay, Jon.
Sorry, microphone was muted there. I think Alex brought up a good point there about feminism becoming a religion. I also think that it already is a sort of substitute religion. We had sort of over the course of the 19th and 20th century, we sort of had the decline of religion, people becoming less and less religious, many people becoming outright atheists. But it's hard to sort of not believe in some sort of overarching sort of belief system. So people sought out the various different alternatives to that. And of course, this whole democratism, the idea that democracy is the only good form of government, had socialism, fascism, and of course feminism, and also more recently this whole environmentalism, where people basically worship nature. All of these are they provide people with easy answers to complex problems, so that you don't have to think as much for yourself, and it's very comforting. And when you challenge those beliefs, you don't get sort of rational arguments back. You get hostility. You get you're basically a heretic in their eyes. So I think it's actually an encouraging sign that these people at this debate actually sort of took you seriously and allowed you to speak and sort of to prevent a case against them. So I think that's actually sort of a step in the right direction. So that sort of makes me a bit hopeful that this sort of religious aspect of feminism is at least on the decline. People are no longer as fanatical as they used to be, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in all fairness, I was not called a fascist, but yes, there were individuals in there who were discontent with my presence, with my presentation in there. But at the end of the day, you left, Alex. But at the end of the day, after the event, most of them were talking about the things that I've said, and some of them said, "Well, you know, that guy brought up an interesting point. What if he's right?" And I was just listening. I wasn't intervening in any of the discussion. I was just walking around there and listening what people are talking, just to see if I spoke to the walls or actually spoke to anyone. And yeah, I mean, if I changed one person's mind in that place, to me it's more than a huge success. And with that being said, we have to call it night. We're running out of time. Thanks a lot, Alexander, for coming to this show tonight. Hopefully we'll have you again soon if another occasion arises. Thanks a lot, Jon, for coming here again. Thank you all for listening. And with that being said, take the red pill.
This has been a production of A Voice for Man. Lucian Wilson and his guests, thank you for listening to the Voice of Europe. The Voice for Men radio is not corporate media and everything runs on donations. So please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and make a donation. We would also like to thank the artists De Prima Terra, Mbeznă, Cristian Buica, the Iranian band Arsames, the DDG Project, and all the other artists that offered us their songs to use under Creative Commons license. Special thanks go to www.pacdv.com/sounds for putting the sounds of the jingles at our disposal. We would also want to remind the listeners to take the red pill. Thank you for listening to us and have a great evening. Ați ascultat Vocea Europei.